Welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled Freedom for Legacy, ApplinX, ConnX, and EntireX as a Service. Today's webcast will be presented by Yovel, Badash, and Gadi, Benedek of Software AG's Freedom for Legacy team. As we move through today's presentation, I invite you to submit any questions that you may have via the Q&A box, which is located in the top right corner of your webcast dashboard. We will address your questions at the end of today's program. In the event that we're not able to answer your question, your submission will be recorded, and today's presenter will be back in touch with you as soon as possible. Additionally, today's presentation is being recorded. This program recording will be made available to you in an email that will be sent to you later this evening. Additionally, this webcast recording will be posted to the Database and Natural playlist on the Software AG YouTube channel later today. With that, it is now my pleasure to welcome Yovel Badash.
Thank you so much, Will, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to confirm, you guys can hear me okay? Will?
Yes.
Gadi?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
Sir.
Sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry for any background noise that might happen on my end, but we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the first time we're doing this webinar, so it's going to maybe sound as a first time. We hope that you'll find the information that we share today interesting and engaging enough for you guys to ask some questions and then, follow up with some one-on-one or follow-up sessions with our teams. Without further ado, let's kind of delve into what Freedom for Legacy is and what we're kind of presenting here. So first, let's maybe start with why are we doing Freedom for Legacy, okay? And I'm not sure if most of you are aware, but Software AG's tagline as a company has changed in February of this year. And the tagline for the company is Freedom as a Service. The message is Software AG is one of the only companies out there, if not the only one, that really doesn't have a platform agenda. We are providing tools and set of products that provide a tremendous amount of value, tremendous amount of functionality, but we're not tying any specific platform or any specific technology into our offering. And we, as a Database Natural team, thought, okay, well, what does freedom mean for us? And how can we kind of leverage this powerful message of freedom? And we've kind of packaged this interesting idea of Freedom for Legacy. The reason for us to package it is really the perception that many customers have around legacy, which is in many cases, in a short way to describe it, it's a lot of companies that are relying on legacy applications. When we talk to them or have surveys or engage in different ways, many folks that don't really know much about the legacy or don't know the specifics feel that the legacy is siloed, it's limited, and in general, they have this feeling of being stuck. They don't really know or feel that their legacy environment could be leveraged and could be as beneficial or as powerful as any other system that they might have from modern, web applications and a variety of others. So our message here is to kind of say your legacy can be free. Freedom for Legacy is our solution, and it's really to kind of address this perception that the legacy environment is limited. Okay, when you're thinking about your legacy applications, you might ask, how can my legacy environment fit my current business needs? How are my skill set around the legacy environments? Could be that it's an old database or an old development language and you don't have the right staff to support it. It might be that you're thinking that there's some limitations around the architecture, or maybe there's limitation on the costs of maintaining it. So all of these reasons that customers are facing with are the reason for us to kind of come out with the Freedom for Legacy. And as Will mentioned before, Freedom for Legacy is a combination of 3 best-of-breed products that are provided as a service, which allow you to actually have the freedom to use what you want where you need it. So what is really freedom for legacy? And you could see in this slide, when you're thinking about legacy applications, which is the bottom part, it really is, I mean, I have my own definition for legacy, and my definition is legacy is everything that's been in production for about 5 years or more. Because when you have an application, even if it's a modern application that is web with, modern database and all that, after 5 years, it becomes a legacy. It becomes something that you're not maintaining very often, you're not integrating very often with, you're not supporting on an ongoing basis, and it really becomes one of your IT assets that you would want to leverage. Freedom for legacy is really that combination or solution that allows you to access and enable and leverage anything and everything that you have on the legacy environment. And if you look at the slide, you see that there are 3 colors in that, rectangle of freedom for legacy. And each rectangle within it represents one of the assets that you have on legacy. So there are 3 things that you could enable or integrate with or connect with, or 3 assets that you have in the legacy environment. The first is your data, right? The right rubric, which is red. And that's all your data. In the database is all your data elements, all your tables. That's where your, secret sauce is. This is where all your environment relying on is your data. This is what your system is all about. The second component is your business logic, which is green, which is all the code and the rules or procedures that you've developed over the years that are on your legacy. And the third is really the way that your users are accessing your data or your business logic, which we call the screen flows. So what you have on a legacy is really data, business logic, or user interaction with screen flows. And Freedom for Legacy is our solution to really provide an integrated and a comprehensive approach that will allow any company with legacy to leverage any one or more of these assets to really provide any modern scenario. And that could go to cloud, it could go to an API integration, that even can go through Internet of Things. Imagine if your mainframe data could connect with one of the hardware devices or connect with some other solutions of, let's say, in welfare solution with the food stamps card of someone. Imagine if you can connect the modern to the old, and what would that mean for your company, which is really, this is what we say when we're thinking about Freedom for Legacy. Let's go to the next slide. And really the benefits or the use cases and the business case for Freedom for Legacy is very robust and very comprehensive. We took the liberty of writing a few scenarios here. I won't go through all of them, but I'll point out a few that we're going to see in the demo later today. When you're thinking about the scenario of new technology, right, how can you, for instance, automate testing of your legacy environment? That is something that will free a company from doing manual testing and tedious kind of hands-on developer testing. If you're thinking about business model, imagine if you could take one system, one service from your legacy environment and encapsulate that as a web service and enable it as an API. What does that mean for your business model? If you can get your legacy to be available online through the web, if you can get your business logic to change or add layers of compliance with regulatory compliance or what have you around your legacy. And we have a variety of other examples of, like, let's say, user satisfaction. If your users are not very happy with the legacy environment or legacy app in the green screen interface, imagine if you could free them to really be not be limited with the old way of doing things and really create a way that you can implement other layers around it. So really, Freedom for Legacy has incredible, or really, as we said in the first slide, limitless potential. It's really limited by your own imagination and your business needs. From a technical standpoint, there's really nothing that you cannot do. There is nothing that the business would require or would want to do that we are not able to support with the solution of Freedom for Legacy. And today we're going to focus on one area, which will be the screen flows. But I invite you all to follow up with us and maybe engage on the other legs of this stool, which are the data and the business logic. Today we're going to focus on one of the product, which is ApplinX, that focuses on the screen flows, and we're going to show some demos that will enable you to understand how quickly and how easy it is to use our solution and what value it could bring to your company or group. So let's delve into ApplinX. And first I want to introduce you a little bit to what the product is, where we come from. So ApplinX has been around for over 20 years. It's been in production, over 200 customers, from a few 50 to 100 users on it to tens of thousands of users. About 65% of the users are using it for web enablement, and then 35% are using for API enablement. There is an incredible value in ApplinX in terms of how low risk and low cost, easy to get started with, and you could actually turn around and show value within a matter of hours or days. So there's really no limits to where you can take this solution in your enterprise. And it's, if I would want you to, remember one thing about ApplinX from today is really the 1, 2, 3. It's very simple to get started. So every demo that we're going to show you today will follow this methodology of 1, 2, 3, like how simple it is to get started. It's simple as 1, 2, 3. Next slide. So there are 4 use cases that we've outlined here, or customers have used ApplinX for web terminal emulation, for modernizing or re-engineering a legacy app, for API enablement, or for screen test automation. Before we go with the demo, I'm going to actually elaborate a little bit about each one, give you some real live examples in the next slide, so you could get a little bit of a context of what does it mean. So web terminal emulation, we have a very nice example of a market-leading insurance company that was able to open up their legacy to any and all of their agents very quickly. So now they didn't have to worry about deploying, heavy emulation software on the desktop. They weren't expected to maintain the desktop environment for those users. All they had to do is basically open up the legacy with ApplinX, and then share a link, a web link, with those that should have access to it. And now they are able to access that environment through a browser, which really opened up a variety of different opportunities for them. Second example, which is the modernization and re-engineering. World-leading investment bank has used, and you're going to see that in the demo, this specific example we're just showing today screenshots, but you'll see in that like how powerful this option can be, because there's really no limits to how you can enhance the experience of your users around your legacy. Your legacy is not limiting you. It's really your imagination that is limiting what you can do with your legacy environment. In this case, they were able to reduce the time that it takes to open an account, make it 4 times faster, open up a new scenario of usage for users, get users on board a lot easier, reduce errors, and really enhance the user experience dramatically. API enablement is a great use case for ApplinX. As I said, 35% of our customers are using this use case. And here you are able to take anything that a user could do with the application, any process that a user would go through, you're able to take and encapsulate and kind of API enable. So now you could use that process without actually having to do the user interface or to rely on a user. You can actually encapsulate a process, and you'll see where Gadi is going to show today. Take a set of screens or a flow and basically automate that and create that into a service that can now be consumed from anywhere. Last but not least, this is one of our unique new features. So those of you that have heard about ApplinX or have heard about, Freedom for Legacy, I'm sure that some of this would be new to you, and I encourage you guys to engage with us and really learn more about the ability to kind of screen test automation, which is really the ability to automate your test scenarios without really relying just on a user or developer testing, making sure that there's no changes that are disrupting the business logic, or increase the time to market when you're doing changes on your legacy environment. So with that, let's kind of move to the next slide, and we're getting very close to the demo here, and I think that's what we wanted to kind of get you guys exposed to, how quickly and how easy it is to use. What you see here is the ApplinX architecture slide, where really what I want you to remember from here is really that ApplinX is one of the most, if not the most comprehensive, screen flow solutions out there. It's been around for a long time. It has pretty much every feature you can imagine. We've dealt with customers that are, like I said, from 100 users to tens of thousands of users, and there's a bunch of functionality and a lot of features that the product is offering literally out of the box that is a result of it being battle proven and being in the field for so many years, solving problems for customers all around the world. And the 4 use cases that I've mentioned before are presented here too. So one product can address 4 different distinct use cases that can create their own individual value. So you don't have to use all 4. Each one of them can stand on its own. Imagine that you can reduce your cost by eliminating your terminal emulation software. Imagine if you can increase your user satisfaction by modernizing and re-engineering the legacy application, or API enabling a business process, or automating some of your screen test processes. One product that has 4 different distinct use cases that each one can stand on its own. So imagine if you would end up having more than one use case scenario in your company. This is a little bit of a background, a little bit of an introduction before the demo, and I think right now everyone probably is eager to look at some of these examples. So we're going to go ahead and kind of present each one of these use cases with a live demo. So what you're going to see today is actually not canned. It's not a video. You'll see exactly what Gadi is going to do in order to actually show value in 3 out of the 4. In one, we're going to have screenshots, just because when you're thinking about re-engineering and modernizing, that requires development, and that's out of, like, we can do an hour of development here on the WebEx, but you'll see at least the result. So Gadi, I'm turning it over to you, and take it away.
Thank you, Yovel. So the first solution I want to talk about and demo is our web terminal emulation. It's aimed to replace your existing terminal emulation with this browser-based emulation. And starting from October, this will be available as an image to run inside a Docker container. So without the need to install anything, just download and deploy ApplinX as a container, configure and connect ApplinX to your application, run the terminal emulation in a web browser. Simple as 1, 2, 3, right? So let's see this in a live demo. So for this, let me quickly, I'm going to connect to my Unix machine here using PuTTY. And I don't have an installation here. I just created the image to be used in my Docker environment. So I've created the image. All that's left to do is just do the docker run command. I'm exposing these ports outside to be accessed from outside this machine. What you usually need to do is just expose the 8080 port, but I'll be exposing this one as well, the 2323 port, which is used to connect directly to the server. That's going to be used in my next demo. So the IUG demo is the image I'll be using. demo this capability in the recent international user group meeting. So I'm just going to run this. And you can see my ApplinX server is running. And that's it. All that's left to do now is just open my browser. Just close this. I'm connecting to the VM we've just saw. I have my configuration options because I don't have any host defined yet. Bear in mind, this is still work in progress, so R&D is working hard on this, and we'll be releasing this in the October release. So for now, I'll just demo just some of the capabilities that we have. So I'll connect to a mainframe host. I'll fill in all the details and save the changes. And when I click close, I can now connect directly to the mainframe application and start navigating as if I'm using the so you can see I have all these just as a regular terminal emulation. I have all these different options. I can navigate through my screens. I can use the different styles. We have 3 presets. This is the black. I can move to green if I prefer this. I have the white one. And again, you can see all these different options. Of course, you can create your own styles. This is CSS-based. I can use macros. I can copy-paste the text out of the screen just by this and copy it into a different application or into a different thing. I can print my screen. Clicking on this icon, you can just take out the printer stuff and get a screen image. This will also send directly the screen to my local printer. And of course, I can log off and show you how I can configure a different host now. Let's take a natural Unix host. I'll take a different host address. And save these changes. And now when I connect, actually, I'm going to refresh this. That's the beauty of live demos. There's always something that goes wrong. Maybe I have a typo somewhere. Try to save the changes again. As I mentioned, this is still work in progress because now when I connect to this natural Unix host, I'll need a host username and password, so I'll need to provide these credentials. And now I can connect, and I'm connected to a completely different host, which I can navigate. This is the SAGTools demo application, and I can, I'll be using this to my next demo as well. I can show you, I can navigate to the menu yachts in this menu, and to the show yachts, where I can put in this yacht ID and get this details on different yachts. So this concludes the first demo for the web terminal emulation. And this leads me to the next solution I wanted to talk about. The second solution is the modernizing and re-engineering capabilities of ApplinX, and how you can easily turn cumbersome green screen flows into new web user experience with these 3 easy steps. Identify the relevant transaction screens and fields, transform and compose green screens and flows into modernized web pages, integrate multiple legacy functions, data sources, and much more into one user-centric flow. Deploy the new functionality and share it with your users. And as Yovel mentioned, because we can't really show all this development in a live demo, but I can guarantee you that all the data that you can see in these 3 green screens is incorporated into this one modernized screen. This is taken from one of our Israeli customers, so unfortunately everything is in Hebrew. But trust me, as an Israeli, I can tell you that all the data here is accurate and comes from these screens in the background. So the third solution I want to talk about and demo is the API enablement and how easy it is to API enable user screens and flows into SOAP or REST web services. With these 3 easy steps, identify the relevant user screens, define the services and expose the functionality as API, run the SOAP or REST services with any API consumer. So this, you can see again, these screens turned into services, and this is something I can just demo it right now. And for this, I'll be connecting using my Eclipse-based software AG designer. I will be connecting to the IOG demo server. That's a server running on the Unix machine we've seen. And again, since you saw I need to provide the credentials before I can connect, so let me just do that quickly. I'll add it. And here, I'll need to provide credentials. Let me just quickly do this. And you can see now I'm connecting to the same host, to the same SAGTools demo application as you've seen before in the web terminal emulation. This time I can navigate through here. And for this, I want to take the same service that I saw you, this kind of get yacht by ID service. So for this, I'll need to identify this specific screen, because this is where I'm going to take the inputs and outputs out of. So I'll just quickly identify this screen. I'm going to take the display yacht as an identifier and start giving it all the different fields and map them. I can map all of them. I can map some of them. It all depends on what I want to expose and what I want to be used in my services. Of course, you can use all the data in the screen, but once you map it and give it a name, then it's much easier to access the fields later on in your services, and it makes the whole service development process easier. You can see I don't need to give in any names to my fields, because it takes all the defaults automatically from these descriptions or from these labels. So you can see this is the headroom, and let me just take the bunks as the last one, add it as the field mappings. You can see this type is protected. I have one unprotected field. And now all this I need to do is just restart the session, connect again, start a recording, navigate through the same screens as the user would do. In this screen, I want to take this as an input, so I'm going to go into input mode. It will automatically allow me just a second. Oh, I forgot to save, so it doesn't recognize the input mode. So just let me quickly start the session again. First, I need to save all the changes that I did. And start the recording again. Navigate, and now when I'll go into input mode, it will automatically suggest the fields that ApplinX knows are unprotected and can be used as inputs. In my case, it's only just one field. I'm going to mark it to be used as input, put in this default value. I can take any one. I'll take this 14. And when I click enter, it will get me all the answers. Now I'm going to go into output mode and select the fields that I want to expose in my service. Of course, again, I can take all of them. I can take some of them. I take the bunks. And when I have everything that I need out of the suggested fields that I've already mapped, I can just stop this, give it a name, click finish. It will automatically open the procedure that I created here. Of course, I can see all the different inputs and outputs that I have, the different steps, and the navigation it took, all the expressions into the row and column. Of course, in the last screen, where I identify the screen, all the mappings are by name. So it's a lot easier to see them. All these fields from the screens are mapped into my output. Of course, I can add additional logic and create different workflows, execute another procedure, loop while, do a for each statement, test if, switch, try and catch blocks, all these different things. Of course, throw exceptions, log messages, and even send emails. Once I have everything ready in my procedure, I can create a new entity, which is a procedure group. This entity is used to expose our procedures as services. Name. And add the procedure. Into this procedure group, I already have my automatically deploy the web service into my AWS stack component. So this time I won't forget to click save. And now I have my REST services exposed, and I can just copy the REST URL to my clipboard, open my browser, paste it here, and you can see I get instantly all the requests and the details from my service. Of course, I can run the same service with a different yacht ID. Let's do 11. And you can see the yacht name and all the different bunks and draft and width and all the different details. And then I can do this with 15 and so on. And oh, actually, I do have a 110. Look at that. And this is it. I have my services exposed. Of course, I can also take this into a SOAP web service and use it with a SOAP client to generate these services. And that's it. That's how easy it is to API enable your screens. And this brings me to the last section, or the fourth solution I will talk about and demo, which is the screen test automation. It allows you to automate the testing of green screen applications and connect it to the DevOps toolchain in a continuous integration, continuous development environment. Again, 3 simple steps: turn the user screen flows into repeatable tests and generate the test procedure as JUnits. Run the test, compare the results against a known set of expected results. Integrate with DevOps processes and toolchains like Jenkins and Natural One. So let's go directly into this demo. For this, I will be connecting to my natural screen tester perspective. Right now, these are two separate products, but we have a plan to consolidate them into ApplinX, basically. So I'll be connecting to my demo application, in which I already have the same get yacht by ID procedure as we've seen before. You can see basically it's the same mappings, might be a little bit different, but all I need to do now is from this already generated procedure, I can generate a unit test out of it. I can create a new, actually I don't, demo, can create a new unit test project, click finish. It will automatically open up the J2E perspective in which the JUnits are running. You can see it created a get yacht by ID Java class, Java file, which is used to run this test. I have this Java file. I have these resources automatically generated one JSON file with my test data. This will be the one with the default values, the 14, which I used in my recording. And of course, I can simply run this as a unit test. And you can see it runs once, no failures. All my expected results are the same as my real results. And now I can just go back to my screen tester perspective, open up the manage test data editor into this newly created application, and you can see I have all my different inputs here and assertions here for this test data file, and I can just as easily just start creating new ones. I can clone this one. I can run this now with a new input, let's say 11, and you can see, you know what, before I generate the assertions, I can click save and run the same. Bring this perspective here. Run the same unit test again. This time it will run twice. And I'm expecting one failure because the first test data file, it runs once for each test data file that I have. So the first passed successfully, but the second, I can open up this comparing tool and see that the expected result was for yacht ID 14 and Atlantis and all these different values. But since I've changed the input, the actual result was yacht ID 11, and of course all of them are different. So I can just go here and generate the assertions based on this input, click save, and you can see now the assertions are fits to my yacht ID. And if I run this again, then I'm expecting all of them to pass. And just and easily I can start doing all these different scenarios. This time with yacht ID 10, I'll generate the assertions and start creating all the different test cases that are relevant for my test procedure. And of course, you can see I can run this again, expect all three of them to pass. I can change the number of bunks from 4 to 6. And that simulates the data coming from the host is changed. And if I run this again, then I'm expecting the third one to fail. And if we'll open it for the comparison tool, you can see that the difference here is just that the bunks and the expected result is 6, and the actual result is 4. And that's it. Basically, these are standardized unit tests, so they can be easily shared into your Jenkins server or any other build verification server tools or whatever used in your organization. And that's it. That concludes my demo.
Excellent.
So if you have any questions, please feel free to join, to ask them.
Perfect. Thanks, Gadi. So to reiterate your point, if anybody has questions, now is the time to do it. So we're going to start off very quickly with our first question, and it is as follows. For the modernizing and re-engineering the green screen into web page format, are there any instances where fields do not display properly? And if so, do you have control over resolving it? Can you change the layout of the screen?
Yes, of course. When you talk about modernization, and that's why that's the only thing that we haven't demoed in this webinar, because again, it requires a little bit more development. As you can see here, these are totally different screens. I mean, we've moved beyond this look and feel of the application. We've combined screens into one screen. You can see this is a complete different menu navigation. You can go into different places of your application. So it really enables you to completely change how not only how the application looks and feels, but really goes into the re-engineering part where you can really utilize the existing application, but come to think of it from a different angle and you know, get different things out of it. And of course, all the data, all the fields can be changed, and you have a lot of built-in user exits for your development where you can go inside of the, you know, regular application flow and get the data from the host, manipulate it, and put it on the screen, or the other way around, get the data that the user entered into the screen, manipulate it, and send it to the host in the format that the host expects. This usually goes into date formats, which are a little bit different, where in you know, used in the mainframe or in modernized Windows-based environments or web-based environments. So these are usually the places where you take the value, you can manipulate it, do whatever you want with it, display it, change it, you know, everything's on the table. You can do whatever you want.
And we would highly encourage the question asker to try this freedom. Test us. You know, if you have a scenario, test this freedom and see the power that ApplinX can bring your data and your user flow.
Okay. The next question I have is screen tester limited to natural applications?
Okay. Well, actually, no. No, that's one of the we had a naming. We had to name it natural screen tester from legal reasons, but it actually supports the same protocols and terminal protocols and screens that ApplinX supports. So it's based on the same technology. So it can be either AS400 systems, VT systems, different Unix, basically any green screen application, you know, most if not all.
Okay. Next question. Can you make more complex services using API enablements?
Yes, of course. So when we talk about API enablement, I think we've seen a little bit. Let me go back to the ApplinX perspective and open up this. This is a very, and again, bear in mind, this is a very simple use case that I'm using for this live demo because of, you know, short time. But of course, there's a lot of different business logic you can add into your basic recording. Of course, you can start from scratch. You don't have to start from a recording. but I find the recording usually a good entry point to your service. So you kind of record the happy path of the execution, then you start dealing with all the different workflows. So, for example, I can add in a try and catch block here, do something in the try, let's say test if, put it here, so you can see how easy you can build up your logic. So test if condition, let's see, test case true. What you want to do when case when the condition evaluates is true, you can add in a loop, and of course loop while. Then you can put in this condition. You can add a Boolean expression for compare, true, false, null, go from different screen names, field attributes, screen content, all sorts of things. Let's do something quickly just to show you. This is very intuitive, so I can loop while an expression. Let's take, I don't know, value from one of the things, value of my input, for example. As long as my input Yacht ID value is equal, and of course I can loop here, or greater or equal, and all these different options. But let's say if it equals to this expression, I don't know, the count of the, I think I added a while, so I have a while one counter. So you can through all different, I don't know, count the bunks and all different options into your expression. Of course, you can add a free text expression. I can ask it if it equals Gadi. I can add tokens here, so I can have different variables that are changing in runtime. So it makes a lot of great customizations, and you can really add a lot of complexity. Of course, you can run instead of loop while is, you can do a is not expression. So everything is pretty, I think it's very intuitive and easy to understand. You don't really write code. You drag and drop different options. You put in the different values that you want. You can open this and again do a different thing. Take this from the out and not from the in. Then it changes. This is the value of the out parameter now. So there's really a lot of flexibility, I would say, to customize and basically add a lot of logic.
Okay. Next question: is there a trial version of ApplinX that one could use to sample the product?
I'll take that. Yes, of course. We do have trial version, and in general, what we're trying to do with Freedom for Legacy is to change the model of licensing from a perpetual to a subscription base. So you're able to get started with a very little commitment, a very small commitment, and get access to all three products: ConnX, EntireX, and ApplinX. So you have all the tool set at your disposal, and you could start, using it and start freeing your legacy or business logic or data or user flow. And then as you bring, more business value and as your use cases are more robust, you'll be able to justify a larger investment, which will then, increase the license depending on your usage. So really with Freedom for Legacy, the model is kind of pay per usage, and so you don't have to pay for something you're not using, and it's very easy to get started with.
Okay. The last question I have for you is as follows: how much time and effort does it take to modernize screens for a new look and feel?
So I'm going to take that too. Is that okay? Just from a high level kind of answer? We take an approach for screens. We typically say there are three types of screens. There's basic or simple, medium, and complex. A simple screen is typically, literally could be done in a matter of minutes, in an hour really. You just kind of identify the screen, do some basic things, and that includes changing GUI elements. So let's say changing a yes/no question to a checkbox, or changing a date element to a nice date feature. Then you have medium, which could be a few hours, where you're doing a little bit more development or more code in the ApplinX front. And complex is really where you want to do, take 3 screens and put them into one. And that could be, depends on the scenario. It could be from a few hours to a couple of days. But regardless of the use case, you are able to show real value very quickly. And I think that's part of the charm of Freedom for Legacy and the ApplinX approach, where you can show your business users value within hours or days, and they can see something working. And you don't have to work on all the screens at the time. So if you have, let's say, an application with 1,000 screens, you can choose the 100 that you're using more often and do work on them, and leave the other 900 basically what we call is instant. So it's just going to look the way that they look on the mainframe, and it would work together. So when a screen comes along and is identified and is something that you worked on and you want to change the flow, it'll come up as a very fancy, a lot nicer web page. And then when the screen comes along that is very rarely, it would be done very quickly, and it will stay as it was.
Okay, I'm actually going to pose one additional question that has come in, and I think it's a bit consistent with the one you were just answering. It is as follows. For web screens, are you able to display the different data options that can be entered for a given field via some type of pop-up box or listing by hovering over the field?
So, of course, the answer is yes, and really think of the title of the presentation. You're only limited with your imagination. So if you have that functionality and if you can do that in a web page, you can probably do it on your legacy. And there's different ways to do that. So, some customers have added a whole help feature on their screens. So every field has a way that you can hover, click on, and then learn. So that reduces a tremendous amount of complexity when you're doing training for legacy applications. Some customers of ours have onboarding process of about 6 months for new employees. So with doing something like that, you can reduce that to a matter of a few days. And then the people learn the app as they use it. But of course, you can implement, drop downs or connected or linked data, so you can actually have the user have less mistakes, less errors, less typos, and really a lot better experience from the application.
Okay, perfect. That is all of the questions that we have at this time. So as mentioned, this recording will be sent to you later this evening, and will also be posted on the Database and Natural playlist on the Software AG YouTube channel later today. So with that, Yovel and Gadi, thank you so very much for your time and what has been a very informative presentation today. Our program has now ended. Enjoy the rest of your day.